All right, so y'all have already kind of met me, some of y'all. I'm Matthew Pace. I am with Regions Bank. I'm a branch manager there. I've been with Regions Bank for 12 years this September. So I've been doing it quite a while. I haven't always been in Murfreesboro. I've been in Nashville as well. But they asked me if I would come in and talk a little bit about what it means to not only be a branch manager in a bank, but also to be a banker or different roles within the bank. So what is my educational background? I have a Bachelor of Arts in Physical Health and Recreation, essentially PE, from Maryville College, which is out in East Tennessee, which you would probably think, how does that get me into the banking industry? I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But sales experience, that's some of my educational background. I've worked for a few other companies where really it was just solely based on sales. And so I got a lot of experiential training from being in different situations where I had to sell, as well as some management experiences. I went through management training as well with the company with Regions Bank, who I'm with now, and then also went through a lot of banking training from Regions Bank. So you might be a little bit surprised about what the educational requirements are to work in a bank. So really from the bottom up, teller to assistant manager, or we call them team leads, we just need to have a high school education or a GED. But when you start looking at assistant managers and branch managers, we're going to need some other type of experiential training, some kind of experience where you've had to be in management before, or you've done cash handling. So I've hired a lot of people who were tellers and bankers that did not go to college for finance. They've never been in banking. Why do y'all think it is the way it is, that all I need is for a high school degree or GED?
Because you take personal finance?
Do what now?
Nothing.
No, you're fine. It's because you take personal finance, maybe not so much, but you're fine. But that does help, right? Because we want you to be able to at least talk intelligently to our clients about how they need to handle their finances. But, you know, we're going to give our people the resources that they need to do the job that we need them to do. I don't need somebody who's got a degree in mathematics to be a teller. Our system is going to tell them if they're giving the customer the right amount of money. We give them a cash counting machine that allows them to count out how much that they're giving to the customer. They double verify so that at the end of the day, they didn't give somebody too much or too little. My bankers, when we start looking at desk side, they're going to go through a lot of training about product knowledge or solutions that we provide our customers and how it's going to benefit them. We also put them through a lot of training that's continuous about how to have the right type of conversation with a customer. One thing I will say, my team lead, I got very lucky, but I actually hired him from French's Boots. He was an assistant manager at French's Boots, but I wasn't looking for banking experience out of him. I was looking for leadership experience, because I need to know that when I leave every day to come do things like this, that I know that my branch isn't burning down. I don't have one worry standing in front of y'all about what's going on at my branch, because I know he's managing the branch the way I would want it to be managed. So I'm very lucky with who I have as my assistant manager. Now, branch manager gets a little bit different. The expectation is college degree, but we've kind of taken that back a little bit. So for instance, I've got mine degree in essentially physical education. Ashley, who y'all met a little while back, she's got hers in finance. Kristen, who was with me as well, she actually went to college for 2 years, decided it wasn't for her, and dropped out. And she is doing an excellent job as a branch manager and managing the branch. We don't do as much as branch managers when it comes to with our clients as what our bankers do. We're managing the branch and making sure that everything is running efficiently. How is my degree applied to my career? Not at all. My degree does not apply to what I do one bit. I'm not teaching people how to exercise. I'm not taping people's ankles before they go out and play. None of that kind of stuff, right? So again, all my degree really did for me was give me a piece of paper up on the wall. But it also said that I could commit to something and finish through with it over, typically 4 to 5 years for somebody. So the question you guys probably ask yourselves that I asked myself when I was in your seat is, am I ever going to use this again? So, for instance, have I ever used sine, cosine, and tangent in my life since I left high school? Not once, okay? Unless Excel is doing it for me. But when it comes to where do I use what I learned in high school and in college in my career, writing is definitely one of the most important things that I use because 50 to 75% of what I do during the day revolves around communication, especially emails. Constantly sending emails back and forth. I joke with my team that if I go on vacation and come back and they go on vacation and come back, I've got 4 times as many emails as what they had, because I'll come back from a week off and I'll come back to about 300 emails. So being able to read those and then get back to those people in a professional, concise, clear manner that tells you the tone that I want to use. It's very important to be able to get across the tone of your email depending on who you're dealing with. If you need somebody to do something for you or you need their help or you're asking for a favor, you've got to be really sweet about it, right? But if you're getting on to somebody, it's probably going to be very, very short of an email, but making sure that it's grammatically correct so that it's clear to them. Right? They don't want to, I get emails a lot from people that it's not grammatically correct. So when I'm reading it, it can confuse me a little bit. And so I'll have someone else come in, they'll read it and they'll go, I still don't know what they're saying. Because if it's missing punctuation, if they misspell something, it could have meant one word instead of this word. All of that kind of stuff, but making sure that you look professional, you look intelligent, and you're being able to get across the message that you're trying to send. We do a lot of reporting. I have to send in a lot of trackers throughout the week. End up doing a lot of writing in there. That one's a little bit different than doing an email. Those can be quick, to the point, bullet points that we're trying to get out within an Excel spreadsheet. Reviewing employees. This is probably the hardest one for me. We do it, our big one is annually, where come January of every year, we do their annual review for the previous year. And that's where I have to be very careful how I word it, because I'm going to hand this over to them and wanting to make sure that they continue to stay focused in their career, making sure that if they need to improve on something, or even if they had an excellent year, I want them to continue to have an excellent year rather than rave and review them and give them excellent marks that they then go, all right, I'm going to take this year off, because that can happen as well. So understanding, is that person sensitive? Is that person someone who you can just be to the point with, and writing that up? It usually takes me, for my 5 people, it can take me about 8 hours to do it. It's just constant all day, looking at their information and then typing up about 700 words for 5 different questions for them that I have to review them on. And then creating presentations. Occasionally I'll have to do some presentations for either our group or our market or Middle Tennessee for other managers. And then this is the big one for me. When it comes to the writing emails, I have to remember sometimes what I prefer. If you send me an email that's a big long email, you're probably going to get 2 sentences out of me. before I delete it because I don't have time to read a big long email. So if you can make it quick to the point, I appreciate that. So that's how I try to send mine. But being able to read those emails, comprehend what they're trying to say, and then execute on it. This one is actually very unique. I don't have a very good vocabulary, to be honest with you. So this was a hard part of my job when I started in banking, was understanding POAs, powers of attorney, trust, estate documentation, and loans, because there was a lot of words in there that I didn't understand. And so being able to say, hey, I know how to read, but what do these words mean? And I can look them up, figure out what they mean, and then be able to relay what they mean to a customer, because we get a lot of customers who ask us during a loan closing, hey, what does this mean in this paragraph? Oh, let me tell you, because it might be a word that they don't understand as well. And luckily at this point, I've been able to go through it, figure it out, and then be able to relay it to them. Training modules, all of our training, I have to do probably 15 to 20 different trainings a year. They are nothing but reading. There's no videos, you don't go somewhere, you sit in front of a computer screen and read, 20 to 100 slides and then answer questions at the end of it. So making sure that I'm able to read those, know how to read, is very important for it, as well as being able to understand. And then policy bulletins and manuals we use all day long, and being able to hunt through a manual, find what it says, and then read it. I actually today had an underwriter, I sent her a question about a policy that we have. And I just said, hey, are we able to do this? And she just screenshotted it out of the manual and sent it back to me, and read it real quick, went, okay, perfect. Called the customer, said, hey, let's hold off a few weeks before we apply for this loan before you have a job. Communication, everything I do is communication. So I can't think of really anything I do at my job that doesn't involve some form of communication. Those types of communications are face-to-face with either a customer or my employees, or other managers, my boss, her boss, emails, same to all those people, and then telephone. And that's not just someone calling in, but if I'm having to call out, also understanding the situation when we're communicating. So we talked about some people are a little bit sensitive sometimes, and some people you can be to the point. Sometimes you're going to have to call somebody who's pretty ticked off. There's two things in life you don't mess with, and that's somebody's family and their money. So when they think something's happened to their money, they're going to be pretty angry. So you've got to call them quickly, be able to empathize with them, hear what they have to say, and then come up with a solution. So being able to communicate clearly with people is very important for us. Some of those interactions would include appointments with a client, my boss meeting with her, or sitting in a room full of other managers and being able to speak with them intelligently, as well as being able to talk about how we do our job and collaborate together. I do a lot of coaching, so I spend a lot of my day sitting one-on-one with members of my team and telling them, what they're doing well and what we can improve on. And then, like I said, upset client, and I think the one that hits hardest would be like an upset employee who walks in, and knowing your people and how to communicate with them to get past whatever they're upset about. What does a typical day look like? I would love to say that I have a typical day. Very few careers have a typical day. You may have certain hours that you're at work, and you can try to schedule all day long, but it never really ever seems to fit what you planned. So I get to work an hour before my team ever does, so that I can mentally get prepared for the day, prepare for our morning huddle, get things ready to go so that we can try to be as efficient as possible. So that's at 7. They show up at 8. When they come in, I'm trying to help them open up vaults. Anything that's dual control, meaning 2 people have to open it together with different combinations and those kind of things. I help them with that so that by 8:30 sharp, we can start a morning huddle. If we can start it before that, then we will. Then during that morning huddle, we really are just setting the tone for the day. What's our main focus today? Are we struggling with checking accounts? Are we struggling with loans? Are we struggling with whatever it may be that we have going on at the time for whatever our goals may be? What's our focus? How are we going to achieve that? And then getting everybody's commitments. 9 o'clock, we unlock the doors. And for the first hour of the day, I'm walking around the lobby the whole day, listening to my people make phone calls to hear how well they're doing it and how it could be improved, okay? And then from 10 to 11, I've spent an hour away from my computer, so now I've got to get caught up on what emails I have and make my phone calls as well. And then the one thing that's starting to get really old is this talk to Curtis. So I've got a client who is a good buddy of mine, but I think he thinks we're closer than we really are. He shows up somewhere in there and wastes about 30 to 45 minutes of my morning.
Every day?
Every morning. Every single morning. And he just wants to talk and hang out. So, and a lot of times it's over nothing. From 11 to 1, now I've got to get refocused because I've had to deal with Curtis. That's where I've got people out at lunch, and at this point, I'm trying to fill the gaps for where people are out for lunch. So if I've got a teller out, who can I put back there? If I've got a banker out, what do we need to do to make sure that that role, we're not missing out with our clients? 1 to 2 is lunch, hopefully. 2 to 3 coaching sessions. So at this time, instead of it being a quick flyby coaching where I just walk up, say, how was that call? What could we do better? What's your next step with the customer? This is going to be a deep dive into conversations that they've had with a customer face-to-face. And then 3 to 4, I'm going to wrap up anything that I've got still on my plate because, again, I've spent another couple hours away from my computer. So respond back to emails, reply back to calls that people have called in and left me messages, and then go ahead and start getting things prepared for our afternoon huddle. 4 o'clock, typically we lock the doors. 4:15 to 4:30, we have an afternoon huddle where we cover up what our successes were, how did we do on our commitments, and then hopefully at 4:30, 4:35, we're walking out the door. What gets in the way of a typical day? Pretty much everything. So someone out sick, someone on vacation, all of a sudden our boss says, hey, we're going to have a call from, all managers have a call from 2 to 4 today. And I may have had an appointment at 3 o'clock with a client. Now what do I got to do to try to get that resolved? People calling in. A big one is angry customers. And really the biggest thing is life in general just gets in the way because you never know what's going to walk through the door. So being able to get whatever it is that just shows up out of nowhere, resolve it, take care of it, do whatever needs to be done with it, and then getting refocused back on the day. Are the hours of my job flexible? Yes and no. So teller up to team lead, they're expected to be in at 8 o'clock. They're going to try to be gone by 4:30. We try to minimize overtime as much as possible. But you know, if we work a Saturday, they've got to cut time throughout the week, meaning they leave 4 hours early. So getting that scheduled for them, hearing them argue about who gets to go out on Wednesday or who gets to be off early on Thursday can be kind of a pain sometimes. But for me, they're pretty flexible. Because I come in early every single morning, I don't feel bad if I have to leave early one day. My boss doesn't mind either. I've got things like coming to talk to you guys or going to talk to businesses. the main focus for me is to be out of the office. They want managers out talking to businesses to see if we can bring them in, or clients to see if we can get them to start banking with us. So really, you know, they can change. So if we got a manager's meeting from 8 to 3 and they're always at my branch, when it's over at 3, they all get to go home, but I go downstairs and help my team out because it's at my office. Why do I get to leave early? So yes, my hours are fairly flexible, but I also probably work more than 40 hours a week, unlike the rest of my team. Most challenging part of my day would be having enough time for everything. So, you know, I love spending time with my team, getting to know them either as a group or one-on-one. So being able to have that time with them to show them how much I care about them. But then as well, being able to take care of my clients, responding to emails, doing what my boss is asking me to do, putting out fires that pop up around the branch. All of those things tend to get in the way, life again, to where at the end of the day, sometimes you go, I just didn't have enough time and I'm ready to go home, but it's already 4:30 and I've got 6 emails I need to respond to. So that can be a big part of something that's challenging. A lot of times somebody might walk in and say, I want to talk to the manager, and it's about getting a new debit card, when anybody else in the branch can do it, but they feel like that person has to be the manager, which really slows down your momentum throughout the day as well. Most rewarding part of my day, you know, a lot of people might think that it's the paycheck that you get, awards that you might get, those kind of things, but those, I mean, paychecks are a necessity. So it doesn't really give me the excitement that I want. But for me, the most rewarding part is, one, client successes, to see them get to where they want to be financially. You know, and that doesn't mean that we are putting them into a new $500,000 house. It may mean we get them from going paycheck to putting away $100, $200 a month. And those are the kind of things that the clients who struggle month to month, that they get really emotional about. And it really hits home and hits you in the heart a little bit. You know, I had a client one time who lived paycheck to paycheck and told me that his fiance was spending all the money. And I said, you need to sit down. You need to have a budget. Let's get both of y'all in here. Let's create a budget y'all can stick to. And 6 months later, I walked into a gas station to buy a drink, and he was there working. And he came from around and gave me a hug and told me thank you, that they'd saved over $1,000 in the last 6 months just by having a budget. That's the kind of stuff that makes you feel really good about what you're doing. Or someone struggles month to month and they have too much debt, and consolidating that debt and tying it into something with a lower payment where they can survive a little bit better. Clients get emotional about those things, and it makes you feel good at the end of the day when you go home. The other thing is my banker success. That's my #1 focus. I want my branch to do well. I want us to achieve every goal and every award as a branch that we can. I'd love to be the best manager in the company, but I'm nothing if my people aren't being successful. So coaching is a huge part of my job for me, to be there with them in the mix, helping them get better. And sometimes that might mean that they realize being a banker is not what they want to do. Maybe they want to be something else in the company. Maybe they want to go to an entirely different type of profession. I just want to help them be better to where they can take that next step and be happier in life. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, is coaching them very consistently. I think I trimmed it down. Any other questions? Or any questions at all? Mine's not as cool as the nursing profession. How much do I make? Currently? So, yeah, I started as just a banker I don't know why I thought it was still up on the screen. I started out as a banker, not a teller, and took a pretty significant pay cut to get there. I was making $33,000 and worked my way up to assistant manager where I was making about 45, and then moved out here to Murfreesboro where I continued to be an assistant manager, became the branch manager of the branch I was in, and I took the management role at about 52,000. And my boss walked in. I got a brand new boss all of a sudden. The one I had left, and she walked in, and her first visit with me, she goes, "You're underpaid." And she gave me I think it was a 12% raise right then. And then at the beginning of the year, she gave me another 10%, and then moved me to the branch I'm at now, which was a bigger branch, and gave me a 14% raise, and then the last 3 or 4 years has given me about 8 to 10% every year. I'll tell you, in her group, the average ranges from about 55,000 to 95,000.
For a manager.
For a manager. So I've been taken very well care of by my boss, and I appreciate her greatly for it. Yes?
What made you want to do banking?
So never thought I would be here. Never thought I would do this. You're right. Actually, I left college. I left high school wanting to be an accountant just because I loved math, and everybody was like, that's what you should do. And I wasn't much of a leader. I was a follower back then. Went to college and realized I don't really want to do accounting, so I wanted to be a physical therapist. And we didn't have a physical therapy degree, so I was going to go through PE, take additional courses, and then go to PT school. Just finally, luckily graduated somehow, and got into I got into a few different roles with different companies, and I was with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and at the time, my favorite manager I've ever had, he left there, came to Regions Bank, and he calls me, he's like, "Dude, you got to come over here." And I was like, "Why?" He was like, "Number one, 14 holidays a year. Like, you don't get that where you're at. That's a lot of time off. Instead of working 2 Saturdays a month for 8 hours a day, you work 1 Saturday for 4. And I was like, "What's the pay?" And I was making about 50,000, dropped down to 32, and it was the best decision I ever made. So I was very lucky to know Jeremy Baker. Any other questions? I thought you had your hand up.
My old manager was named Jeremy Barker.
Jeremy Barker?
I got really weirded out for a second.
My aunt has the same job that Ascend.
Does she? She want to come work with me?
She's fine at Ascend.
Okay, all right.
She would be in charge.
Have you ever made a mistake that could have cost you your career but didn't?
So what I will tell you, I've made a lot of mistakes. Not just in life, but at Regions, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I constantly live in fear. They joke with me. I live in fear that I'm going to get fired every day. Okay, my boss loves me. I'm not scared to say that. She does. I joke that I'm her secretary, but I mean, one day I remember at my old branch, I was on the way home and I was in a panic because I'd been in a teller drawer all day. And at the end of the day, when I balanced out, I was out $2,000. And our limit is like 200. So 10 times that amount. And I was in absolute terror. I called my regional operations manager and my boss, and I said, "So I know I'm getting fired, but let me tell you what's going on." And I don't know how this happened to me, because it would have been either termination or final written warning. And they said, "Here's the good news. Right now, we're not tracking it. So you're okay. But do you know where it went?" And I was like, I don't know. We're going to try to figure it out in the morning. The very next morning, a lady calls in and she goes, hey, she's like 80 years old. And she's like, hey, you gave me $2,000 more and I was going to bring it by, but I didn't feel like it. So I'm going to come in the morning, this morning and bring it to you. Oh, I almost cried. She got a hug. She definitely got a hug when she came in. But that's about the worst I've done. Now I've ticked off some customers by not telling them, you know, I was new in my career and I didn't tell them everything because I didn't know everything. And I thought that would cost me my job. But I tell my people all the time, there's nothing you can do that can't be fixed. So if something goes wrong, don't panic. Let's just fix it. Yes.
So you talked about how you can coach people. What's like the hardest thing to coach people and to teach them?
I'll say the hardest person to coach is the most sensitive person, because you have to be. I come from an athletic background where if you're screaming and yelling at me and you're in my face, I'm good with that, right? And it makes me better. And so I had to learn I couldn't coach like that. And I've got someone right now who is a very sensitive person. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I have to be very careful about how I tell this person, you know, hey, I need you to improve on this. And here's how we're going to do it. And coaching styles have changed. So no longer is the coaching style you just tell them point blank. It's self-discovery. So I'm going to ask you open-ended questions, not just yes or no. And I'm going to get you to come up with the answer on your own. And then I'm going to get you to commit to that because you've come up with the answer on your own. Can you commit to that? You can? Perfect. I'm with you. How can I help? So, you know, I've got 2 other in my branch that I am mean to. I mean, I am mean, and they love it. But the other one, y'all, hey, do they not love it?
They do. And so part of the reason why he likes doing what he does, because, I mean, let's be honest, I sit here and listen to this presentation, and I'm like, your job sounds really freaking boring to me. Like, why would you want to do that every day? Part of the reason that he loves this is because he didn't play football in college, and so he spent his entire childhood and all of his college years doing sports. And what he does at work is coaching. So we see the coaches here at school, like they love sports and stuff and coach and teach people and lead people. That's exactly what his job is. He is literally called a coach at work. As a matter of fact, the last time he was here, they called him, we said that he got Coach of the Year or Manager of the Year because his branch has done so well under his leadership, under his coaching. So the fact of the matter is that even though he's called a branch manager and he runs the branch, really his job is to lead the people that are underneath him as a coach. That's why his presentation says, I coach from this time to this time. So when he talks about in his presentation that you don't really need a college education to do the different jobs that are in the branch that he has, that's because his job offers on-the-job training. They're training their people from the time they start the job until they get to his position or even positions higher than him. The job is teaching him or the people in his branch the skills that they need to do the job. That's why the college education thing is not such a big deal. They prefer that they have a college education as a manager, but if you start from, can you hire somebody at 18?
I sure can.
Yeah, so if you leave high school and go get a job as a teller at the bank, in 10 years, you could be the branch manager without having gone to college because the bank provides you with that training and the skills you have to be successful in that career.
And I'll go back. I'm glad you brought that up, some of that stuff. I'll go back to the question you asked. One of y'all two asked it, how much do we make? So kind of covering within the branch. So I told you I started out at $32,000 as a banker. That has changed significantly, and that was in Nashville where they pay more, right? So in our market, it's not only growing, but we're outside of Nashville. My two tellers, we call them cash row people, or actually RB1s, relationship banker 1. Both of mine make over 40,000. So they start at 40, and then I've got bankers that make right around 50. My assistant manager, I've gotten him up to about 60. I mean, the guy's 26 years old making $60,000. That's pretty daggum good. So, there's nothing that I coach that's hard to coach. It's being able to know who your people are, what they can and can't handle, and how to communicate with them to get them to be a better version of themselves, and so that they can be successful. Because that's all I care about.
If you had advice for someone going into that career, what would you tell them?
If I had to give advice to someone going into banking, that's a good question. Relax. I mean, I'm serious. I've got my team lead. It's almost like if it goes wrong, he's just like, whatever. But I've got another one. I think if she sneezes wrong at work, she's afraid it's going down, right? So there's a lot can go wrong, big time. You can close an IRA the wrong way and cause them tax penalties. But here's the deal. We can fix everything. If a customer gets angry, because we deal with a lot of them. So if a customer gets angry, understand how to communicate with those people. Just stay calm, right? If your manager's not doing what they need to be doing, your manager's got to have your back. So I will let my people, if they've got an angry customer yelling, I'll let them handle it until it's gone too far. And then I'm stepping in, because you're not messing with my family. So, I'm going to let you try to grow on your own, but sit back, relax, have a good conversation with the customer, do what's best for them, and understand everything can be fixed. Just empathize with an angry customer and you should be fine.